Hi, and thank you for joining me for another short talk. And friends, today being Yom Yerushalayim, the day that Jerusalem was liberated from the Jordanians, I thought I'd speak on something that I don't think anyone has ever spoken about on YouTube. And this is a topic that I think if any rabbi, at least on a pulpit, mentioned in front of their congregation, they would be kicked out. And that is the idea of the three oaths. What are the three oaths? Well, first let me give you a little bit of background. Friends, most people do not know that before 1948, every rabbi was against the establishment of a Jewish state. This is a fact. Around 99.9%. And one of the main reasons they used to justify their position was the three oaths that appears in the Talmud in Masechet Ketubot. It states that before the Jews went into exile, three oaths were made. The first oath was that the Jews would not beseech the walls of Jerusalem. The second oath was that they would not war against the Gentile nations that they were exiled to. And the third oath was made by the Gentile nations not to overly mistreat the Jews. Now, this is something that doesn't even have to be quoted in the Gemara. Because I understand it's considered Midrash and Agadah, and I'll tell you, in the Jewish world nowadays, that everyone elevates Midrashim and Agadot to the level of halakha, I mean to the level of something that one has to do. For some reason, this one, they make an exception on. They'll say, oh, it's just a Midrash, just a Gadata. Friends, the reason I say that it doesn't have to be stated is because this is what the Torah states. It says in Deuteronomy 28:29, in Leviticus 26, that when God exiles us, that he will only allow us to return once we do teshuvah. This is clear. Obviously, we're not going to war against the nations that he put us in or fight our way back into Jerusalem. This is just obvious. But regardless, friends, this is one of the main reasons given why the vast majority of Jews did not endorse the establishment of a Jewish state. Mind you, the establishment of the Jewish state was a secular, atheist Jewish endeavor. Why did they settle on Israel when they initially had places like Argentina, Uganda, and other places on the map? That's really for another video. So, when did the tide really turn? Well, it really turned after the Holocaust. I remember when I was in Kfar Tapuach, they told me that one of the reasons that the late great Meir Kahane gave for the establishment of a Jewish state in light of the three oaths is that just how the nations broke their oath to not overly mistreat us after the Holocaust, this in some way invalidated the first two oaths. Now that's his opinion. Fine. It's a nice shita. However, I think it overlooks the underlying principle or the formula we see for Galut and Geulah that we see in the Chumash, right? That it is Hashem who allows us to re-enter the land once we do Teshuvah, not us forcing our way back, right? And there's countless midrashim of people who try to induce the Geulah earlier than it's supposed to have been, and what happened to them. I think one of the main opinions amongst the Rishonim that laid the way for this other form of thinking was the Ramban. Now we know that the Rambam, Maimonides, does not include living in the land of Israel as a mitzvah, while the Ramban, Nachmanides, does. Where is the disconnect here? Now, the Rambam did consider the mitzvah to have existed. In other words, he believed that the mitzvah of living in the land of Israel, or the mitzvah of conquest of conquering the land of Israel, expired in the time of Yehoshua. That nowadays, if someone would in some way try to embody that mitzvah, especially in Galut, they would actually go against the will of God. In other words, we're in Galut because Hashem put us here. So trying to say that we have some obligation to force our way back into the land is contrary to God's will, right? The Torah cannot contradict and really undo itself in that manner. While the Ramban says no, it's a constant mitzvah, and this is one of the sources that Zionists use to justify forcing their way back into Israel and fighting against non-Jewish nations because of the Shita of the Ramban. Now, we know that this is how the Rambam felt about it, because he even writes it in his Iggeret Teman, right? He quotes the three oaths. Now, the real source for the three oaths comes from Pasuk in Shir Hashirim. I'm really not going to get too much into that because I don't have it in front of me now. But friends, everyone held to this. It's just something for you guys to know. Now, I support the establishment of the State of Israel. I support the existence of a State of Israel. I don't pray that it should be dismantled. However, friends, I support it in the way I support any other democracy, i.e. not from a religious perspective. Now, mind you, the vast majority of Haredi Jews are not Zionists. Most people think that only because you live in the land of Israel, you in some way support Israel from a religious perspective. And that's really my position. Similar to the late, great Yeshaya Leibowitz. In other words, just like I support England, just like I support India. In other words, all ethical democracies in this world saturated with cruelty, of course I support the establishment of the State of Israel. But I don't consider it a Jewish state, and I do not believe that it's a piece in the Messianic puzzle or the resurrection of biblical Israel. And I don't say that Tefillah Medina. Friends, we just have to put everything in perspective. We have to know that the vast majority of rabbis that people learn nowadays, that people quote, did not support such an idea. One in particular, the Chafetz Chaim, was a staunch anti-Zionist. Most people don't know this. I mean, staunch in the sense that he actually wrote about it. He wrote about fighting these secular Jews in the street, right? These atheistical, technically communist Jews of the time. So friends, that's really all I have to say on this issue. For more information on everything Jewish, please visit bejewish.org. Thank you.